Hello, Alyssa Faden. Hope you're doing well. Thanks as always for coming on. So, as I titled this one, this is at least from my standpoint anyway, all about Garycon. You've got the your Garycon map behind you, which is awesome. So, first of all, are you feel like you're recovered? I don't know. When did you come back? Did you come back Monday, Tuesday?
It's kind of weird, and I'm not sure I've had this before, but I came back on Monday, which is a good time ago, but it's been mad, Todd. It has been mad, and I think part of it is because I was actually away for a full week before. I actually was out to the largest collection of tabletop RPG materials.
I
There's
saw
a
that on
guy
your
called
Facebook
yeah,
feed.
Bill Meinhardt, and I was at his house on Sunday before. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday-ish, so about 3 or 4 days before the con, I was already surrounded by incredible stuff and playing games. So I've been playing games for like 8 days straight.
Wow. So, I guess so. First thing about him, is he located in that Lake Geneva area, or is he just on your route? Or
Just about an hour away.
oh, okay.
So we touched down in O'Hare. Not that anyone would care about that, but just to kind of give you a sense of where things are at. So touchdown in Chicago. Bill's house is not far from there, like 15, 20 minutes tops. Hung out there, then an hour from Bill's house, basically towards the southeast-ish, is Geneva Lake.
Nice. Now, how did you meet this? Is this someone you've known for a long time? Did you meet them online? Like, where's the connection, or
A
what
few
was the
years
connection?
ago, so he had heard of me, um, but actually it's kind of a funny story. So, have you ever seen that English show, the Antique Roadshow?
Yes, they have it
All
here
right,
too.
excellent. So you always get this person turn up with like a silver plate with no identifying mark, maybe a little bit on the bottom, and you'll get some dude that will be like, oh yeah, this is late Georgian, and this is actually from the Smith, Simon North, and he just knows this shit,
Yeah.
and it's like, what the hell? How do you know this? Well, I went to Gamehole Con 2019, something like that, and they have a great auction there. And I'm sitting. This is my first time ever being in this type of auction for tabletop sort of materials. And I'm sitting there, and they pull up like let's say a blue box for the sake of argument, whatever it is, and they'll be, this is a blue box in original swing, yada yada yada. And there was this guy sitting at the panel at the front. And occasionally they would go to him and he would sort of stand up and he would be saying something along the lines of, so this isn't the original shrink. And from what I could tell, this is actually the third printing, not the second. And you can tell because of, this here, it has slight rust damage. And he would just go off. And the more you listen to him, the more you were like, holy heck, this guy is like a Mekon brain for this
Right.
stuff. And it didn't matter what it was. It could be something weird like Hornmaster or something really obscure. And he would he would say, yeah, this was actually printed in Milwaukee in 1978. And he just knew it. He knew everything. So at the end of the auction, I went up to him and I was like, I just got to say, you are incredible. You're clearly incredibly intelligent, and I'm really admire what you're doing. And he had heard of me. That was my first time hearing of him, and that was Bill Meinhardt. And now I've actually hung out with him for a while. That's him. That's how he thinks. His brain is this big, and it is full of this type of stuff. Literally, I mean, you saw the library,
Yeah, I saw that
this
image.
massive, massive, massive collection. But it's like he knows about all of it. He can pull out any book, any material, and he'll be like, "This was the draft notes that Tim Kask sent to Bloom in 1979, and this then led to this prince, which I have a copy here." And he knew it. He knew everything about everything on his shelves, and he's got 11,000 items, and he
Wow.
knows about every single one.
So, what was the highlight in that library of your visit? Something you got to play with, read, interact with?
Play with? No, no. Well, there were a few things. Actually, there was a few things. All right. So one, and I'm not a Magic player, but he has an uncut alpha sheet from Magic: The Gathering, which I mean, it's just a stunning, stunning, stunning piece. Like if you're a Magic player, you literally sort of fall like your seat looking at this thing. The other is actually, honestly, like he had all of the brown boxes. He had Tim Kask's brown box, Bloom's brown box, and that's fine. But you know what did it for me? The red and blue brown boxes, because I haven't actually seen them for 30 years, 40 years. I look, and to actually see one and handle it again was a treat because it took me back to my teenage years. I was like, this is it. This is what started it for me, incredible. So seeing them, but also, I don't know if you know this, but there was a DMG where they actually, it was a monster manual where they accidentally mixed in some elements of the DMG into it.
No, I didn't know about this.
And so it's a monster manual. You open it up, monster, monster, monster. Suddenly, DMG inserted right into the center. And it's like 10, 20 pages. There's a whole section of the DMG, boop, right in the middle.
Wow.
And then you flick, 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 and it goes on into the monster manual again. And there's not many around, and I had never heard of it. So he's sitting there, and I'm actually going to post a video because he's sitting there and he's actually demonstrating. And of course, I think it was apparently it was a printed mix-up. They did a recall, but he managed to actually snag one. I'm sure there's a couple still out there, but he had one. So that was kind of a fun thing. But the real kicker? So he actually pulls out a player's guide that I wrote to my own world that I only did for my own players over 10 years ago. In other words, I'm running Pathfinder for about 5 people. That's it. And I like to create little players guides, telling people about the world, whatever. And I did a binding on it. It was one of those steel bindings with the glue down the edge. And that was it. There was 4 or 5 of them tops because for the players, that's it. Well, he has one. And I'm like, how? This was a personal item. How do you have this? And I showed it to Jack, my husband, and he's like, wait, what? We're in Chicago. How have you got this? It was never for sale or anything. It was just for our personal food. How do you have this? So we still don't know.
He didn't tell you? He doesn't reveal his sources?
Well, he's not sure because he says he buys sometimes job lots, and like he surmises that he probably bought like a job lot from the Oregon area or something. And we have had obviously players leave in the interim, and it's possible that one of them just managed to get out there into a local gaming store or something. And he bought this job lot. And he said one day he was sitting there going through like a whole bunch of stuff, and he finds this thing, and it's got my name on it, and he went, wait a minute, what? So it was kind of funny bringing that out and signing probably what is literally the only copy left of that thing.
Wow. Well, that's great. Well, you've got it in the library. So now it's like for all time, you're going to be there with the old masters.
In the library. And I will say this, Todd, a lot of people look at those screenshots, the photos that I posted, and they'll go, well, there's 7 brown boxes there. He's just hoarding. Let me just say this about Bill Meinhardt. He actually has no duplicates. He set out 40 years ago, 50 years ago. He wanted to get, and this is literally 50 years ago, he decided he was going to start collecting this. He felt that this was going to be the birth of something very special with role playing in general. And he wanted to have the best copy available of everything. And that's what he set out to do. But sometimes what that means is Tim Kask's brown box is different than Bloom's, which is different than Mensa's, So he has multiple brown boxes, but they're all unique for their own reasons. Likewise, he has several like monster manuals, but they have Tim Kask's. All of the TSR group apparently would get their own personal copy, and it had their name embossed on it. So he has those. So yes, he's got 7 or so monster manuals, but it's because that one belonged to Tim. That one belonged to Frank. It was that type of thing. So he actually doesn't hoard. And if he gets a duplicate, he keeps the best one. And then he actually gets the other one out to his friends and other collectors in the world, because he doesn't actually believe in hoarding. That's the beautiful thing about Bill, is he actually he wants, that's why he got invited to the house. He wants people to see it. He wants to, other people to have other copies and things like that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That was very cool. Did you guys do any gaming while you were over there, or was it just, what'd you play?
Yeah, we did. So he had quite a few guests, and a lot of people sort of bedding down elsewhere, but they were close. So we actually had something like 12, 14 people at one point. Now he's got a fairly large house, and he's got a finished basement, which is probably bigger than my house. And it's got an upstairs area too. And what they did is Steve Winter from TSR and Mark Greenberg wrote a scenario where there would be two D&D groups who played 5e. One group was upstairs, we were downstairs in the basement. And what we didn't know is we were playing the same scenario from two different sides, and we were coming together.
Oh, were they texting each other or something, sending out the progress of where each group was?
They were pretty much doing that, exactly. So we did that for a whole day. Then at the end of the day, or the beginning of the second day, we actually met, and we were after the same item. And it had been set up that we hated each other. They were dwellers. We were the steppe, nomads. So that was really kind of cool. Then they brought that group down into the basement, and we all sat around the Dungeon Forge dungeon to finish it off. And that was kind of epic. So it was 2 solid days of gaming, Monday and Tuesday. Big gaming days. We were playing until 1 or 2 in the morning.
Who won the item? Your team or the other team?
Actually,
oh, nice.
Because of Bill. And I hate to be the one that sort of sits here and sort of says, it's a little bit like, tell me about your character, and you stand there listening to someone bore you, Richard. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to bore people with the minutiae. But basically, it was a sword we got to get hold of. There's a whole bunch of undead guarding it, some really powerful stuff. It all kicks off. We're fighting them. They're fighting us. We're fighting the undead. But in amongst all of this, Bill had turned himself into an eagle and was just sort of staying up above. And at the opportune moment, he swooped down, he dropped the bead of force. And in the ensuing chaos of that, he scooped up the sword and he flew off and out. He was like, see you, suckers.
Yeah.
So it was good. He managed to get it. But it was also one of those where the whole thing was there was actually a big bad boss that wasn't there, like a god. And she followed him and was like, yeah, that's cute, but now you give me the sword back. So none of us actually won. She did, but
Still sounds like an amazing time. This is before you even actually get to Garycon. This is pre-Garycon excitement.
Yeah, we're like, I guess Wednesday morning we're still up and gaming until 1 or 2 o'clock. Then later on Wednesday we're going to head over to Garycon. So it was kind of a packed week of gaming.
I believe it. So how did you get from his house to Garycon? You guys rent a car?
Just
taxi?
drive.
Okay.
There was X amount of people. We all jumped in a whole bunch of vehicles and just drove on over there because it wasn't too far away. Took all of the stuff, took the dioramas, the painted miniatures, and then just over there. Got there, Wednesday afternoon, checked in, and it was great.
All right, so let's get into it. So you were there both just as for yourself, but then also at least having provided the map that you have behind you for the I guess the official map for Garycon, and also is going to be used in the Garycon scenario. Did you have to do anything special when you get there? Did you have any get to go and look at had you seen kind of the preprints or anything of what everything was going to look like? Or
I hadn't seen the preprints, so that was kind of fun to actually. They had the map printed and poster size on easels about the convention with a "You are here." It never got old looking at that, especially if like someone stopped and went, "Ooh," and would take a photo. I was like, "Hey, I did that."
Did you get to keep one of the easel size posters? Did you keep one?
Oh well, I didn't need to because we had some canvas prints there too, courtesy of Noble Dwarf. So I have one of those, I think. But basically, they were limited edition, numbered prints, and so those are the ones that people were buying at the convention itself.
Oh, really nice. All right, so you get there, you check in. Was there any, I don't know, was there any kind of evening cocktails / gaming meet and greets, anything like that, or was it everything was just?
Yeah, No, you gotta imagine 3 years of no gaming, 3 years of not seeing these people. There's one thing I love about the Garycon area. In fact, if I just sort of back out in a little moment, oh,
No.
come on, there we go, and there, right above my finger.
All right. I can't quite read the lettering. What is that? It says like
I think it's
lobby.
like yeah. So that's they have this one. Actually, let me take a step back. This is I'm going to describe it as a ski lodge. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's during the summer, it's all golfing and everything, but it's kind of weirdly laid out. It's like not a massive tall thing. The thing is only 3 stories, right? And at any one time, you only see 2 stories because it follows the hills,
Mm,
so it's long versus tall. You know,
okay.
and so when you first walk in, there's this massive, huge area that opens up in front of you with a big roaring fire. There's a bar, and you take some steps down to where there's tables and everything. And that's the main bar, lounge. So that's people were already congregating there. They were already chilling out. You got your drink, you got your friends. The atmosphere was electric, Todd. I can't describe it. It was like there was an energy to the place that was just it was wonderful. So the moment you walked in, it was like, I'm back. This is good. I'm with my peeps.
So what did you take part in? What because you're right, because you didn't have any official responsibilities, right? You'd already done the map. Or were you, or did you have, because I know Chaosium was there. Did you do something with them in an official
I
capacity at
did.
GaryCon?
I'm not sure they were because I didn't even see
Oh,
that
okay.
booth from them. So I don't think they were there. Um, so, but so I was invited as a special guest. As a special guest, they want you to do some things. They want you to run games. So I ran 2 games and I was on 2 panels. So those are the things I did. Then in between those, I played some games. So and it really starts like Wednesday night. I just sat with friends and we chatted and we drank whiskey and we caught up and we hugged and we drank more whiskey. Um, and then Thursday morning, I ran a Call of Cthulhu called The Spear of Antioch for folks. So I got right into it.
And that's the
That
one you
was,
adapted from your home game, right? Because you had that kind of
yep,
side mission. I remember you saying. All right. So that is that the one you did? You run that one? I know you think you had that one as one of your kind of time traveling tales, right? Was this the
I
Roman
didn't bother with
era
the time
version, or you just
traveling.
did it
It's like
modern?
these are Muslims in the era of the First Crusade trying to get the Spear of Antioch off the Crusaders. Um, and like in my normal game, there was all sorts of other stuff wrapped around and into it, and it was actually they were from the future, like 1920 coming back. Didn't bother with any of that. It's like here are your Muslim character sheets. Gave them the background. I was like, get to Antioch and figure out how you're going to steal this thing. And they had a blast. One player even gave me a bag of dice.
Oh yeah,
At the end, it was like any game I really enjoyed, the GM gets a bag of dice, so that was really fun.
that's nice.
And I had 2 other players tell me later on it was like their favorite game of the convention. So it was like
Oh wow,
coming
great.
out swinging, the first game
Absolutely.
and already making an
Did
impact.
they
So
succeed? Did
brilliant.
they get all the way to the end, or?
They did. They did. I thought they were going to screw it up at first. I'm not going to get into the details of what the scenario is about, but there's different ways of actually getting this thing. And there's bull in the china shop, just kill everyone and steal it. But
Right.
ultimately, that's not going to do the job. You've got to discredit this. You've got to make the Christians feel like it's not the spear of Christ. And just killing everyone is not going to do that. They're just going to know that the Muslim forces stole it. So, but they got smart right at the end. In the last 15 minutes, they figured out what to do, did it, and it was all good. And it's a bit of a time travel, not a time travel, but a journey through history because the Spear of Antioch or the Holy Lance exists. There are actually several in life, but the whole thing about Antioch and how it was found and who found it and the circumstances of the Crusader forces around it—that's all real, and that's part of my game. So as you're there, you kind of feel like you're kind of witnessing history a little bit, and they got off on that.
Oh yeah, no, it sounds awesome. What were the 2 panels that you were on?
So the first panel, we did the fantasy mapping show with Anna Maya
Oh
actually
okay.
on the Friday. So our usual time slot, and we had a guy called Kafir or Cave Geek Art. He joined us, and we streamed it, and we actually sat there with a crowd, and we did our usual show. But we did it at Garycon, so that was a lot
How
of
was it
fun.
doing it live? What was that like?
Well, that was Jay's problem, Lord Gasomba. But no, it went fine. He actually managed to get a decent reception going, and the streaming worked fine. So it was kind of cool having an audience here, but also an audience on Twitch.
Mm.
And so they were throwing out questions on both areas. So it was great. And we spoke for about 2 hours. It was
Did you have a
fantastic.
projector, some kind of screen, so the people who were seeing
Yes,
it
we did.
live could see?
There was a TV in the room, and Anna managed to actually hook up her thing. No, it was a projector. It was a projector, and she managed to hook up her laptop to it, so we were able to show maps behind us and stuff. It was great.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
actually
that's
had some
awesome.
handouts. I had the Gaslight map too, printed on canvas, so I
Oh,
was able to
nice.
hold it up
Is
and
it
talk to people.
is it officially finished?
Nah.
Will it ever be officially finished? No.
Yeah, it has to be, because at some point they're going to say, "Give us our map." But between now and then, I'm just going to keep squeezing more labels onto the darn thing.
Well, are you happy with how it looked printed out? How big was it when you were printing them out? How big was it? Like,
About 4 feet by 3 feet, something
okay.
like that,
And
and it
you
looked pretty
look,
damn swanky.
I believe it. How much? So on that size, how much detail could you see essentially without having to use a microscope or a magnifying glass? Could you
Oh,
get at
everything.
that
No,
size? You could see everything
it
well.
was good. It was good. And these were the small labels I've been using. I've actually been going through the map, making some of the labels larger. But yeah, everything showed up just crystal clear. I've drawn little gravestones on this map in one of the cemeteries, and they were all showing up too.
Wow.
Mm.
That's awesome. So what was it? What was it like? I mean, there must have just been a different vibe doing that kind of stream. I mean, we do it live, like we're doing it live right now. But I mean, live with people on the internet theoretically watching versus live with people in the room actually watching. It seems like it adds a whole different energy. It must have been. I just feel like it must have just been a lot more. I don't know, just some extra fuel for the fires there with people actually in the room with you.
It was easier because you can imagine if you got 20 or so people sitting, and it was a nice little auditorium room too. So, curved sort of area there, that the seats are going up, they're all kind of looking down to you. So it's very easy then for them to sort of sit and kind of put their hand up and ask a question. Made it a lot more organic and fun that way. I mean, I love the Twitch streams a lot. And you have the Twitch stream off to one side and you're making notes of questions, and so you're still getting a lot of like the questions coming in, but you're not seeing the person's face. They can't do a quick follow-up question.
Right.
It's a little harder. So this was a fun divergence.
Yeah, and just you get kind of if something's funny, people laughing, you kind of get that sort of in the room as opposed to just imagining that people are however people are reacting, like getting to see it seems like really
Oh,
nice. And
no, exactly. And, so, Lord Gasumba does giveaways all of the time on our mapping show. Um, but you've got to mail them and things like that. There's a lot of follow up. Well, we did a giveaway too during the show. So we were giving away canvas prints of maps. We were giving away Castle Keeper's guidebooks that my maps are in. We were just here, hey, have this, and here, have this. Who wants this? Who wins this one? And so everyone walked out with something. Every single person that turned up actually walked out, I think, with a couple of items.
nice. Yeah, that's true. That's a lot easier just to hand it to somebody as opposed to having to go through the post. Go through the post. Yeah, that's a good idea. And what was your other panel about?
Okay. So Saturday, actually, and this is a fun subject, but it gets a smaller audience. But I think it's a very important subject.
Ooh,
It's actually
tell me more.
equality at the gaming table, and I've done it for 3 or 4 Garycons now. There's a gentleman that organizes it every year, and he gets a diverse range of panelists on there. And we talk about it's called something like everyone is welcome at the gaming table, or everyone, it's something like that. And it's basically talking about what can we do better as GMs or conventions or as gaming groups to ensure that the gaming table is a safe, welcoming environment for everyone, player
Yeah,
and GM alike.
that's really good because I feel like it's really important and kind of the OSR scene. I think has struggled with that a bit in terms of having kind of a reputation maybe here or there of not necessarily being the most welcoming for all. And I know that, I feel like GaryCon's kind of the flagship kind of convention for old school gaming. I think either that maybe or maybe GameholeCon. I don't know, but I feel like GaryCon is kind of like the one that if you had to point to a particularly OSR convention, it's GaryCon. So who was on the panel with you for that
So
this
there was a
time?
woman called Kat, and which isn't going to mean anything to anyone, I don't think, and a guy called Mike. So it was us three. We were
Are
on the
they
panel.
what do they do? Do they do stuff like do they write gaming stuff? Are they like
Yeah, I mean, I think they're writers, but
okay,
not like full on professional. But that's really not like the shtick. It's like everyone, including a lot of people actually in the audience, had, I want to say, something personally relatable to this particular subject, whether it be from a health or mental or emotional condition, a gender, a even a religious background. It was like the whole smorgasbord. So they represent, let's just say, certain. Um, I don't want to say certain aspects to our role playing audience. Both of them
sure.
represent that.
And so what was that talk like? I mean, you've done it a few times, so do you find it easy to get into? Because it's one of those, sort of, it's a subject in which a lot of people will get very defensive, I think, about, right? And I mean, kind of anytime you sort of touch those kinds of things, it's very easy for people to see themselves. I mean, obviously, people in a good way will see themselves like, hey, this has happened to me and I can kind of learn from, but also, I feel like if someone feels like you're talking to them in terms of something that maybe we're trying to not do or trying to moderate, that people can get very defensive and kind of feisty. Um, but I presume in
Well,
that kind of audience that people are there because they want to talk about it and
well,
they want.
exactly right. I mean, and there are some pros and cons to this. If you are, let's say, for the sake of argument, um, you are going to run a panel that talks about the awesomeness of Star Trek. You're not really gonna have people turn up that don't believe you or don't like it because they prefer Star Wars or whatever. They're just not gonna go to the panel. And
Right.
so the the, there is an aspect where you go, cool, we're not sitting here like arguing with people or trying to convince anyone. We're all here because we all believe in this subject and we want to sort of talk about how do we now just improve this? How do we ensure there's a little bit more stable at gaming tables? How do we get conventions to adopt XYZ? Are there any problems going on? And what is the answer? And so on. The con is, though, you're not probably talking to the people that really need to be hearing it,
Right.
right? Every single person that was there is an ally. They're already on board with the subject matter. Everyone. So that's great. You can have a good discussion about it, but you're not changing minds. And I don't think that's really the purpose of it. It was the type of thing where we were talking about, is there anything that could be done differently in convention registrations when you're putting your game in? That just let's say, for the sake of argument, um, women know, for the just use it as an example, that it's safe for them to be in that particular game. I mean, let's be realistic. 90 odd percent games are not going to be unsafe to women. But I think there is a way of flagging, I'm your ally. I got you, boo. As a DM, I'm going to be policing my
Right.
table. So
Yeah.
if you're nervous, for whatever reason, this table's safe. And it's talking about, well, how could we do that? How can we create this event? Is there anything in the form when we're creating events that could signal to people, you're fine? You're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I agree
if
with you that almost everything is usually good, but then when you hit one that's not good, right, and not being able to, have good one, have no way to know where you're going and whether you're going to hit that 5% that something horrible is going to happen, and then not having good tools to do if you do hit that table, right, it's just gonna. I mean, it's like anything. If I thought that, sure, 95% of the time I'm going to cross the street fine, but 5% of the time I'm going to get hit by a truck. It's
well,
going to make me
no, and
really cautious
absolutely.
about every time I cross the street, even if most of the time, I'm okay. I'm curious, what were the kind of issues that were surfaced? Like, what seemed to be from that panel kind of the big challenges that are out there for maybe tables in general, and then maybe conventions in particular.
One was how I think we even opened with the discussion of how do we signal that this is a safe table, that this is a table full of allies. How do we do that, and therefore make anyone for any reason who may be nervous about sitting down at the gaming table feel reassured. But that then became a discussion of, let me think. That became a discussion about how do we encourage other game masters then to graciously start adopting some of these policies. For example, I sat down at a Spelljammer game during Garycon. It was
Oh,
my
okay. Well,
first time
don't say
playing
too
it.
much about it now because I want to ask you about that after this.
Uh, okay, I won't. But right at the beginning of the game, and it was the only game that did it. They handed me it was like a questionnaire, and it went through various subjects. Just I'm comfortable with this, whatever. I'm not comfortable with this. So, for the sake of argument, um, adult sexual interaction. Check the box if you're comfortable with that or not. And it had a sort of a middle zone too. I'm a bit of a prude. So I was like, yeah, I don't need that on my gaming table. So I clicked, no, I'm not comfortable with this. And there was a whole bunch of subjects. Hand that back to the GM. GM looks at it and he then knows if he needs to modify the game at all or not. And by the way, it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be you're like super wigged out about spiders, but to the point where you're going to leave the table and have a panic attack, So check the box and say, no, 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 no. And the GM will change it to something. It was a consent form. Only game that did it. So one of our subjects, one of the things that we spoke about is how do we get GMs just to even be aware of the purpose of a consent form and adopt it more? And so it's really one of how do we educate? How do we get people comfortable with this without provoking some kind of, oh, you're the woke crowd, get out of here. I just want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Because you get that reaction very quickly. So it's really about, no, 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 that's not what we're doing here. This, do you understand what this is about? And so we had a good lengthy discussion about that type of thing.
Yeah, I feel like some of this stuff, and it's going to be something where I feel like there's got to be a certain amount of people, and maybe it's the people who are were in your panel and in similar panels and other conventions, who then hey, some of these folks, hopefully they're GMs already, if not that they're willing to GM, and they start creating tables at conventions and other places, and they use these kinds of tools. And then players, when they're looking for games, prioritize the tables that have the tools. And I think if it gets to a point where you say you go somewhere to Garycon, and let's say you have 60 tables, I have no idea what the number is, 60 tables, 40 of them have tools of this type, and 20 of them don't. And you can see that the 40 that do are totally full, and the 20 that don't are maybe struggling to find players. They might look and say, well, how come their table's full and my table's not full? We're running the same thing or close, or like, do I smell or whatever? Like, oh, they're using this tool. Maybe if I use this tool, I would get people to do that next time, or even this time if I can. I will go ahead and adopt the tool and see that it's not someone trying to box you in or tell you what to play, whatever. But ultimately, like, don't you want people who kind of want to play in the game and are enthusiastic and everything? And I feel like ultimately it's just helping you get everybody to play, right? I mean, that's kind of the goal, right? Let's get everybody playing. And there are certain people who are just going to stand on the sidelines because of these issues or the threat of these issues or the potential of these issues. And if we can make it so, like, no, really, it's cool, why not do that? But I'm sure there's also this intersection with the kind of like, my game, my rules, you don't like it, you leave kind of thing, which I think is maybe an attitude that might prevent some folks from adopting cards that they feel like is ceding some of the authority to
I feel
players.
like you and I could have a very big discussion just on this topic, and I would actually welcome it. Because while I understand someone saying my game, my rules, I don't, I can't stand behind that. I wouldn't even necessarily stand behind that as a household game for, your gaming group, because at the end of the day, we're all meant to be there having fun with the same game. And we have different roles and responsibilities at the table, whether you're a player or the dungeon master. And if either side is going to sit there and say, well, just because you can't keep up with my metagamed character, sucks to be you, GM, that's a bad player. And then conversely, the GM that sits there and says, my game, my rules, it's just being an arsehole and is not doing anything to accommodate the fact that the players are meant to be there to be enjoying themselves, right? It's very, very close-minded. And what I like is more of a harmonious atmosphere, particularly at a convention. Conventions are different. They operate under slightly different rules. You're sitting down at a table with 6 strangers. And I don't know, but that guy sitting over there might be, a veteran of a certain, like, of any particular war, and might have seen some things and had some harrowing things happen, and certain subject matters may like upset him. Why do I want to upset a fellow gamer at a convention, a stranger, when our bond is gaming together? I want him to walk away from my table having an absolute blast. I feel a responsibility as a GM to be accommodating and therefore give me the tools to understand if anyone is going to be offended by something. Let me give you another example. And Joseph, we're definitely going to get to that point you've just made. Let me give you another example. In the same Spelljammer game, there was a gay gentleman at the table. He was an absolute wonderful human being, love him to death, and would absolutely play with him again. Now, if I had been GMing that for the sake of argument, or and like had some gay characters in the game, but role played them in a absolutely horrible, like trope-like way, that's going to offend that player. That's going to upset that player. And that's not cool. I can't sit there and say, my game, my rules, because I'm being a dick, right?
Yes.
I'm being an absolute arsehole, and I'm going to upset one of the players. Likewise, if I was one of the other players and I decide my character's gay, I'm not gay really, but I'm going to play gay. No, you're not. Do it. No, hold on, because you're going to also upset them. So I think that there are responsibilities, particularly at a convention.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, there's that golden rule. Just don't be a dick. If you're about to say or do something, you're like, that's kind of a dick move. How's this? Don't do it.
It's so elegantly simple. I think Will Wheaton said it years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, and he had like his October or something of "Don't be a dick," and it's just it's that simple. Just don't be a dick.
All right. I figure that the K5K put this as a good, I mean, a great question. I can't really answer it, but maybe you can. Alyssa, how can hetero/cis old white males, and I count myself among them, that number, overcome any assumptions people may make about their societal values? I've been stereotyped in the past and find that frustrating. Any suggestions? So I guess maybe this is kind of the inverse, right? So like, hey, we're an old white guy, but we're not like other old white guys that folks may have met, or maybe are looking at. It's like, oh, you must be of a certain type since you are older and you're clearly white. Did that come up at all in the panel, or just from your experience running these things and being involved with these discussions? How do you get folks to, and maybe this is kind of about also, maybe say, hey, look, I am an ally. I may not look like one, but really, I am, or I'm trying, or I want to be. How can someone who maybe, people might look askance about at because of the way they look, or because whatever, kind of get that across? Even if you're not a GM, let's say you're another player at that table, right? And you may look a certain way, but you want to be able to kind of communicate to people like, hey, I'm cool. I'm not.
No, and it's a really, really good question. We actually had someone in the audience who I think was probably 80 or 90 years of age, and he was a white guy. And he was an absolute ally. You could tell it that he was. So at the gaming table, so I am a big firm believer, honestly, that how you play and how you GM immediately gets picked up on by everyone else at the gaming table. I don't care what your gender is. what your ethnicity is and what your age is. When you sit down and you pull out your dice and you start interacting with your fellow players, even just pre-game, I'm a big believer that you get a sense for what you're in for, right? Particularly when you start role playing. And let's just take a step backwards. You know who the loud, obnoxious one is going to be at the table, right? Because they make themselves known, and you go, okay, all right.
They're not turning that on and off. That's on from jump.
That's on, right? And likewise, you know who's going to be the quieter one at the table because you just see it. You see it straight away. They're a little quiet, a little bit more reserved. As a GM, you got to kind of like pull them into the game a little bit and ensure the loud one doesn't take over. That's your GM playing the conductor role, keeping everything balanced and moving. And it's the same, I swear, if you happen to be an older white guy and sit down, I think just play your game. Just be you. And you are going to be seen as, I'm going to use the phrase, an ally. You're going to be seen as being a cool dude, who's just there to game. Because there's a big difference. There's a big difference in the older white guy that's going to sit there and then start, I don't know, role playing a South African man and immediately go, okay, dude, you're just not getting it, and it just starts coming out. Or they decide that they're going to play it like a little flouncy sort of woman, type, and they just out there, and it's like, God, come on, dude. So I actually played, I want to say, let's say 6 games when I was at something in that sort of magnitude, and every single game, there was an older white dude at the table, and never, ever, ever did anyone actually even like look across and go, "Oh, we're going to have trouble with that one." It's the ones that sit there, and here's the thing: because the guys that are that type of person, they will let you know. I'm going to joke now. It's like vegans. They will tell you, right?
they have to tell
sorry,
you.
Vegans. My apologies. But it's like the old white guy that doesn't want to be woke is going to be the only person at the table that says the word woke in the first 30 to 20 minutes, And it's likewise, he's going to be the only guy that says, I just want to play Dungeons and Dragons. Anyone, they advertise themselves. And I think we all know it as gamers. So anyone can sit down at the table, just play your game, and you're going to be fine. Just do you. It's like when people like are trying to overcompensate or are trying to battle it, even when there's nothing to battle. These are the ones. These are the disruptive ones at the table.
And I feel like there's this kind of maybe a similar type. The ones who start looking to try to get support from the other people about whatever, like they start to make comments as if to kind of see who's on their side or something else about somebody else's character. Maybe looking at the other person, kind of rolling their eyes, like, check out this guy,
Right,
and
they'll be the ones that sit there and say, so the orcs are evil, right? Because in my world, orcs are evil. It's like, okay, you're that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I think particularly play your game. You don't need to play the guy's game next to you. Don't need to play whatever. Just play you and just roll with the punches. Be amenable. I mean, that's about the only thing I could say. I'm falling to sort of middle-aged white guy territory, mostly white guy territory. So, but I just feel like when you look around, like Alyssa's saying, I really feel like you can see kind of those problem people. Just don't do those things. Stay away from those things, and it should be fairly smooth sailing.
And I'm going to actually just to add to this too a little bit. I was at Con like 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, and honestly, one of the biggest problem players I was at the table with was actually a young white guy. And it's not because he was white or necessarily that he was a guy. It was him as a player, and he's going to grow up to be an arsehole, because clearly he is tone deaf to the fact that he's sitting at the table with 5 other players in a social environment. And if you are a grown human being of any age, gender, or ethnicity, and you recognize that this is a social game and you're there to have a good social time, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. I agree. The K5K. Thanks for your response. Says it is harder with online interactions. It is. I think the thing is
Mm.
with online is I would say the K5K. It's probably illustrative, an example of kind of know what not to do. You might it's been a couple years, but the kind of Adam Coble thing where he kind of went down made a couple bad decisions in terms of what he's putting his players into, and the players are trying to tell him basically, we're kind of stop. This is not cool. We're not into it, and he just kind of barreled through it and didn't listen, and it kind of killed. He was someone who was streaming a ton to it, and it really kind of killed his whole thing. If you go back, I think those videos are still up, or you'll be able to read the comments around it. I think that thing is listen to the people you're playing with. If they're hearing them say like, please dude, stop, don't go there, whatever, just try to listen to them. It can be hard. You can find your inner voice saying, this is not so bad, or oh, come on, guys. But ultimately, if everyone's telling you like stop, right? Like that scene in what Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way. It's just listen. Because I think oftentimes if we can listen, even though it can be hard, we just listen, then that will save us, right? And usually at the end of it, when something terrible's happened, someone's gonna say, like, I tried to tell you, man. And just, it can be hard. Just try to listen to folks. But that's about, assuming you're not a jerk, not a natural born jerk. That's kind of the best you can do, as Elfbait says. You can only do you. You don't need to try real hard to convince people. Just take people kind of as they are and as they present to you. Don't be a dick. And if someone's telling you you're being a dick, try to hear them before you put on that shell of like, I can't be the dick. You can be the dick. You must be the dick kind of thing. And the listening skills are very important in all aspects of life. Yes, absolutely. I have trouble with
But
that
you see,
myself sometimes, as
I
my
think
daughter
that's
will
the
attest
thing.
to.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like we act like gaming is so massively different from real life, and it's not. Yeah, is it escapism? Of course it is. Are we going to fight dragons in real life? No, we're probably happy for that. But it's like we act like this is just a big mystery, and it's not. If you sat down at a bar with a whole bunch of strangers, hopefully you're not going to sit there being a dick, because if you are, you're probably going to end up getting your face kicked in and dumped outside, right? I mean, and it's like you don't do it. You just don't do it anywhere else. And certain people do, the Karens of the world. But it's like we endeavor, hopefully, to be good human beings in a social environment. And like our tabletop RPGs are no different. It is harder virtually. It is. Because you can't just even whisper to each other or anything like that. There's less opportunity for getting those social sort of
Yeah, the
signals
cues, right? The
across. The
cues are kind
cues,
of missed,
yeah.
right? But certainly if someone's telling you like, hey man, I'm not comfortable, or please don't do this, or can we skip forward over, just try to hear it as not an attack on you, but somebody kind of calling out from a place, really a vulnerability, saying this is not good for me, and just being generous and saying like, okay, cool. Like I maybe have wanted to go there, but I don't need to. I could skip it. I mean, I'm with you on that. The box for adult sexual situations. Yeah, I would definitely be no, thank
I was
you.
like,
I'm
I
always
don't need
like,
this in my game. I'm good,
no.
thanks.
That's
Fine.
like if I'm the GM, that's like fade to black. Let's star wipe. Like you can have you need a moment on the side to play that out yourself. But we're gonna. It's not that kind of game. That's usually my line. This is not that kind of game. We'll just move on out. But what is my kind of game is um oh, what's the name of it? Not I keep wanting to say Starfinder now, but the
I
spacefaring game you just said. Not Starfinder. You just said it. I just said to hold on to it. Oh, Spelljammer.
Spelljammer.
Yes. Who's the original box set I lost, and I've been trying to find a good deal to get one back again just to have. So what was okay, I guess first let me ask, was this just a game that you found? Did you like hunt it out? Did you look how did you get yourself on a Spelljammer playing table? Number one.
So I actually very rarely hunt games out, and that's the truth. Because I don't buy a badge if I'm invited as a guest, but I'm not the platinum level. I'm not the diamond level. I think I come in at gold, I think. But Jack, who gets a complimentary badge too, he's a silver. So we both just wait until we can register our games at the same time. So typically, honestly, we're back in a queue picking our games. But we realized a long time ago we don't want to play games that we can play at home. We want to play games that we can't play at home. So we kind of look for the unusual ones, even like, homebrew system. You're going to be playing 80s actors in true 80s action star fashion.
All
And I'm like,
right.
that sounds bizarre. We're playing it. And it was one of the funnest games I have ever sat down at. So we look for things that are unusual that aren't on our gaming shelves. We go out for that. So I suppose in a way we do look for games, but we're looking for the games in the niches. And we happened to see a game by a guy called Brian Steele. He's a wonderful guy. We've played with him before. So we kind of knew that we're going to be in for a treat. He's always extremely well prepared. And it was Spelljammer. And we were like, we've not played Spelljammer. Let's do it. And it was great. It was great. It just, the Spelljammer lore got us hooked straight away. We were like, oh, this is pretty cool. And he had converted it to 5e. There isn't an
Okay.
official Spelljammer 5e.
Right. I was going to ask about that if you guys are playing. I think it came out with second edition originally.
Yeah.
I think
And
second
Brian
edition is the
had
only
actually
edition it came out
converted
with. I don't even think any third edition. I remember. I'm assuming that he kind of streamlined the mechanics, because for what I recall of Spelljammer, it's been forever since I read the rules. I loved the books and everything. That box set, it was amazing, but the mechanics, they seem to go so far into the weeds with stuff. Like you have your ship, and then you're calculating like the cubic feet of air that would tell you how long you could survive between like the spheres and stations. And it just seemed like, I'm like 13 or I don't know, maybe 15 or whatever. And it's like you get in those weeds and it's just like, I just want to fly around. I just want to fly around in space. I don't want to be like, like Flash Gordon or something, where you just stick a fishbowl on your head, or not even that. You just have and you're just kind of out there. Whereas they were just getting like super, like, why do I care about the cubic footage of this ship? And how, like, I just can't we just hand wave it away? Can't we just make it kind of fun? Because I never thought that stuff was particularly the fun part of Spelljammer, was figuring if you were gonna suffocate as you're flying between the spheres.
Well, so I will answer that question in a slightly roundabout way, Todd, because I play a lot of war games. I love war games, and in the past I've played a lot of crunchy war games that can take hours per move. And on my own time, with players who don't mind, where we enjoy the crunch, that's okay. But at a con game, and the minute I started taking my war games to conventions, I realized this. You have to be snappy. You've got 4 hours, and it better be bloody entertaining for the players, right, along the way. So it better be quick. Everyone better feel like they're doing something all of the time and not waiting on anyone else. And I do the same in my role-playing games. I want them to be quick. I want them to be accessible. I want every player to be actively doing something all of the time. I don't want people sitting around, 5 players waiting on one player scouting ahead for 2 hours. That's a bad game. You're doing a bad job as a GM, right? This is a convention game. We've got 4 hours. People are in, out, but have a whale of a time in between. And some GMs get that. And Brian does. Brian Steele gets that. Like, we were on board a ship, we weren't doing any mechanics, all of those, they were out. I mean, don't worry about that. It's like, he explained kind of a bubble around the ship, and it's like, you're good while you're in that bubble, you're fine. And there was it. There was no mechanics, there was no math. It's the same as like Shadowrun. I don't know if you ever played Shadowrun.
Oh yeah.
And thrown a grenade. You could sit there a little bit like bloody grappling rules in Dungeons and Dragons, like just going, okay, so break out the flow chart again for me, and certain GMs, particularly at a convention, will just hand wave it away, to use your phrase. It's like, I'll just roll the damage and let's just see what happens. Not and it's 6 feet away from this wall, and this wall has 9 structure, so X amount of damage bounces back, and now I'll calculate the other wall. No, if you're doing that at a convention, you failed. And some GMs do. So I'm not going to say that all GMs running Spelljammer at a convention would do what Brian did, but Brian realized, I've got 4 hours, let's keep this moving, and he did. Other GMs, and I heard reports of some named people in the industry where literally the players would walk down a corridor and fight maybe a couple of kobolds or some orcs, and did nothing else in 4 hours because it got dragged out so much. Some guys get it, some don't, you know?
It's, I mean, I haven't run any kind of games, but it seems like that's something that you have to learn is how to, I mean, that kind of art of the one shot. It's almost like we could do a whole thing about kind of what you need to do, whether it's a
Yeah.
convention at a gaming store or whatever. There's kind of a different tack, things you wouldn't want to do in your home games, like be kind of railroady, more or less. It's one shot railroad the heck out of me because you don't have time for like a million different open the world. It's like, no, I'm here for this set time. I need to see this part of the world that you actually want me to, and not try to hunt and peck it like I'm playing King's Quest 4 and I'm looking for the magic pixel. Like just get me, slap me down where I need to go and let me loose. What was the adventure? Do you have like the kind of
Yeah,
overview
I
of
could give you a brief
what the story
synopsis. So we
was?
were all different races, but we were all in leadership positions. Like we were ambassadors to
Oh,
our races. And one of the Greys, I think they're called, because they're like the ones that do the space navigation, was kidnapped. And we were going to negotiate him back. Except we found out that he had been kidnapped by some pirates, and then those pirates were actually attacked by Ithalids, so we ended on board an Ithilid ship fighting the Mother Brain,
oh,
as you
nice.
do when you're a space jammer, apparently. And I was a big, huge hippo woman with an anti-matter rifle. They're called GIF, and I'm a big hippo like character with an anti-matter rifle, and I'm dressed like I'm on safari. I am in.
What level was this for? What level were you guys?
Ooh, I think we were probably about, I want to say we were about fifth, maybe
Okay.
something like that or less. It wasn't I think it was fifth. I think it was fifth. It wasn't a huge level. Um, and there wasn't a huge amount of feats and like abilities and stuff like that. There was a couple of things that each character could do. I think, by the way, that's a fairly sweet spot for 5e. Up
Fifth
until
level?
about seventh. Beyond that, you have so many tricks and abilities. I think it starts to bog down the game a little bit. Not knocking 5e. Every game has that point, and 5e definitely has it. But we were down on the lower levels. Our abilities were very manageable. Our hit points were very manageable, and it was a romp. It was a romp through Ithilid territory.
Nice. How many people were you playing with? How many people were at
I
the
think it was
table?
about 6 players. I think there was about 5 or 6 players easily at the table. Yeah, I think it was six, and then the GM himself. And we all got to have fun. We all got to actually do our thing.
Did you win and take out the elder brain or the mother brain or whatever it was?
We did. We did. But she was kicking her ass at one point. She definitely had some powers. This elder brain thing. I mean, they're all psionics and stuff, aren't they? Like they were wasting us. But no, it was fine. It was a good old romp.
Nice. I've only played kind of vanilla fifth edition. How did it feel playing fifth edition with kind of that sort of sci-fi trappings? Did it feel to work
Great,
okay?
to be honest with you. Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't feel a little weird to now take my antimatter rifle into a medieval world and start shooting kobolds with it. Um, that plus it did like 86 or something, no, 68 or something. Did hellacious damage. I mean, it was a powerful magic item,
Right.
and I think that would like be weird to some people. If you were doing that type of thing, and they're there for more the hack and slash Conan the Barbarian stuff, and then Hippo Woman turns up with her antimatter rifle and dynamite. It's like, what game are we playing? But I love the concept. I love the concept because you could travel between these worlds, these settings.
Yeah, no,
I
Spelljammer,
think
that
it's
stuff was
awesome.
really cool. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really ever get to play it. I just really got to read it and absorb it. Like I had a lot of gaming books I never got to play. I was just kept reading them back to front, front to back, back to front. Um, but I feel like mechanically it just kind of got originally just sort of got in its own way a bit too much. But I think people really just wanted to, it's almost like those artificial barriers, right? You think like the promise, the of Spelljammers being able to do all this stuff, and then you make it kind of super fiddly to deal with. Like I would have been fine if they just said, "Hey, the ship's of this size, this many days of air, whatever," and just doing that. But doing that whole thing, like you got to figure out the cubic
Well,
footage of air. It's like just ballpark it for us. We don't need, don't make us go out and have to do trigonometry and stuff just to figure out that we have four days of air, then 3 days of air. Just say you got 3 days,
if
and
I'm going to
we'll
be
go from
fair,
that.
though, Todd, if I'm going to be fair, I think that's part of the success of 5e versus now second edition was extremely popular too, don't get me wrong, and a lot of people prefer it, but back in the 80s and 90s a lot of rule developers went full on crunch. They did. um and there was more, I don't want to say there was more tolerance for it, it was almost more expected because it had a wargaming background from it. So if you start doing this trigonometry exercise, to calculate like the path of your ship, people are like, okay, yeah, fine, I'm going to sit here for 2 hours and calculate this. Nowadays that wouldn't happen, and there is rumor that WotC is doing a 5e spelljammer. There was big rumor on that.
I
And
totally
so,
agree with you. 5e
and I'll
like advantage
guarantee
and
that it won't have any
disadvantage.
of that in it. It just
Yeah, oh
won't.
yeah. No, no. I mean that was maybe one of the big successful things they did. As complicated as 5e can get in terms of player abilities, they really did try to eliminate or cut down on all the modifiers and the kind of maths. I think that's why advantage or disadvantage system just became so super popular, even outside of fifth edition, was because you could just, sure, you don't get quite as much granularity, but just telling someone roll 2 dice, take the higher one, take the lower one, was just like, wow, like that just, how much calculations do we just remove just being able to just eyeball 2d20s and picking one. Pretty good. Another hour has rolled on by, Ms.
Holy
Faden.
heck, that was maybe the fastest hour we've had yet.
I know. I really do think maybe next month we'll do, because I really would like to. I think like we could really do a whole thing kind of on that panel topic about helping to make and keep and support kind of I don't know, open tables, welcoming tables, and a lot of things. So maybe we can make it a kind of a special sort of themed episode around that next month.
I would like that. I think having some of our shows have a theme and a topic
Yeah, I think it'd be
would be
good. I think
great.
that's
I'm
one. Yeah,
down.
and I think that's one that I feel like is a really important one. I mean, in all kinds of games, I feel particularly in the OSR could use maybe a little more of that, or at least a little more showing people that, hey, look, we're just not old men yelling at clouds, going back to our 50-year-old games, but that we are open and we do want more people to play. Anything going on in the world, in your world, that you want to mention before we
I'll
close
just very
things out?
quickly mention that next week I'm off to Chaosium Con, and it is their first convention. So the next time we talk, we can talk about that convention.
All right, that's awesome. That one's like in Denver somewhere, right? Somewhere in is it in Colorado? Is that, or am I thinking
I
something
think
else?
it's
Where is
Denver.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's. I'm not sure. Well, next time you could say, so did you ever find a convention? And
Exactly. I am sure you will find it. All right, that was great. Thanks a bunch. Hey, thanks everybody for hanging out. I appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback in the chat. Alyssa, when this ends, it's gonna play a video. The one nice thing about Melon, it has like an automatic kind of sign out video. Hang
Okay.
on. Hopefully, once the video ends, we'll be able to talk to each other, and
That
so we
sounds
can
good.
schedule the next one. If it doesn't, I'll beep you on Discord. Everyone else,
Okay.
I guess if you're around tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow on chat for the Reddit roundup. Other than that, have a great day, night, whatever you watch, listen to this. Good night, everybody.